Call the Tuesday, June 18, 2019 meeting of the City of Oldsmar's City Council to order. The first two items on the agenda are our invocation, Pledge of Allegiance, that will be led by our City Attorney, Mr. Tom Trask. Please rise.
Heavenly Father, we come humbly before you to ask your divine guidance and help in our deliberations this evening. Bless the members of the council and the citizens that are present. We pray that our work this evening will find favor in your sight. This we pray. Amen.
Amen. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we get started, I want to recognize someone who is in the back room back there. I don't know if he's still back there, but he's sick, so he didn't want to come out here, and he also said, I didn't want to freak you out either. And that's our former mayor, Mayor Beavis. Applause. 5 minutes ago. He's hiding. All right, the next item on our agenda is the Citizens Open Forum. You could speak about anything you would like, except for items 10 and 11, which is a public hearing. So when we reach that on the agenda, you'll have an opportunity to speak about it at that time. Each speaker is allowed 5 minutes. All we ask is that you state your name, your address, and please include your city and state and a zip code as well. Is there anybody on this side of the room? Man, this is going to be a really good crowd. I could feel it. How about this side over here? Ah, there you go. I know it. I'd be disappointed if we didn't.
No, I don't do this often enough, but anyway, Orchid Rogers, 212 Arlington, East Arlington Avenue. I am wanting to bring your attention. I'm sure there are a lot of people besides me that have complained, and I do think that the people out of Pasco have done a great job, but they left a mess in front of my house, all down my street. Okay, it was beautiful St. Augustine grass under the dead tree that the city will not take down for me, and it's on your right-of-way, and that's another issue I have that has to be addressed, because how in the world can you expect the homeowner to be responsible for if those branches fall on a car passing by or on people crossing the sidewalk? So that's all I've got to say.
That's all. All right.
That's enough.
I will tell you, they did my street, I don't know, a few weeks ago, and they had an issue with something across the street from me.
Well, I know they're still in town.
Right. I mean, they're still working, right? And so it's from a practical standpoint.
And
what I started to say was they had to tear up the sidewalk over there. So I've heard about it from my neighbor.
What happened is they parked heavy equipment right there where the stop sign is at Arlington and Franklin. That in itself, but that's gone.
Yeah.
But now then we had all these swales, and it was all pretty St. Augustine there.
Yeah.
And they tore it all up and didn't fix it.
Unfortunately, we are going to have to incur this pain in order to get to the other side of getting in some good quality, I call it plumbing, but that's just simplifying it.
Well, they're doing
And then afterwards,
they're doing a good job. The men were very nice and everything else, but, and they left a big sack of garbage, but at least it was in a sack, and I didn't care about that. I just put that out for the garbage, but it was heavy.
Well, that was nice of you. All right.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else on this side of the room? What do I see? Amanda.
Hello. This is
Poet laureate.
Yes, this is Amanda, 135 East Lake Club Drive, Oldsmar, Florida, 34677. Oh, I don't often say that out loud.
Hey.
So, who has a poem for me from last time?
I do. Okay, this is the first poem I've ever written in my entire life. Wow. So please forgive this.
So before you start, why don't you explain a little bit for the audience?
Yes, thank you. So as Poet Laureate of Oldsmar, I try to come to these city council meetings at least once a month, and I present the city council with a challenge. And last May, so last month, I gave the council the challenge to write a poem about the hero of, or who they consider to be a hero of Oldsmar. And that could be a nurse, a teacher, a veteran. So I would love to hear.
All right.
You can critique it later off camera. Well, it's not about a particular person. Okay, I titled it The Soul of a Superhero, a Brave Heart. The fragile wall between us and despair, protected with, on our own, constant prayer. Breached by the courageous few, the brave ones, wielding only hoses, axes, tasers, and guns. By those veiled in bunker gear, bulletproof vests, hoping they will remain among the living blessed. Veins filled with adrenaline, hearts pounding with might, in chariots flashing with red, yellow, and blue light. Horns blaring and sirens blazing, stated ever so simply, you are all quite amazing. Running towards while we run away, so that we may go on to live another day. God, I'm nervous. The brave hearts of our everyday superheroes, of our first responders. Au contraire, former Chief Dean O'Neill, if it were easy, us politicians would do it.
Very good.
Nervous.
You get poetry snaps.
Oh, really? For my very first ever one?
Yes, thank you. That was wonderful.
I didn't pick between the firefighters and the cops, so I just, or the sheriff, so I just had to do first responders.
Thank you for sharing.
That was really good.
Very good.
For this competition now. I don't have mine ready yet because I can't find anything that rhymes well with Beavis. I'll have it ready by next time.
Well, I'm looking forward to it.
Challenge for next month. What's the challenge for next month?
We probably should, complete this one.
I didn't do this one. I didn't.
Make a suggestion, please. Just send us a reminder like a week ahead.
Oh, I can do that.
Good
Yeah.
That
idea.
would be great.
Excellent idea.
You know, for all of us, so that we can just say, hey, we got to get
yeah.
that done for Tuesday night.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot going on.
Oh, of course. Yeah, I just wrote the reminder. I double underlined it with an exclamation point. So.
Thank you.
Careful what you wish for.
So today's poem that I've written for you is called Midsummer in Oldsmar, and it was inspired by a friendly little local bat that has decided to make a home of the outdoor hallway outside of the apartment. And there used to be a lot of bugs outside of our door, but they have since magically disappeared, so I'm not going to complain about the bat. And my husband wanted me to pass on the word that he wanted me to tell you that he named the book, or he named the bat, The Better Batman Tony Stark. So this poem is called Midsummer in Oldsmar. Caught in a downpour without an umbrella, warm droplets form rivulets on my shoulders. This is midsummer in Oldsmar. Teen ducks waddle behind their mother, no longer in a row, wading under the rain and thunder. This is midsummer in Oldsmar. A bat that can fit in my palm makes a cave wall of the third floor Mediterranean revival. This is midsummer in Oldsmar. The rain lets up as I get to my door. The ducks nestle next to the pond. The bat waits to awake at dusk. This is midsummer in Oldsmar. Thank you. And now for the part you've all been waiting for, the challenge. Nature is all around us, and whole ecosystems can be in our own backyard. Look outside and really take in the weather and the environment and any animals you may see, and write a poem about it. I want to hear about the nature that you see in Oldsmar.
Very cool.
And that's it for me.
Excellent. Well, thank you.
you.
Good job. Good job. Do we have anybody else on this side of the room? All right, moving on. I'm going to close the Citizens Open Forum and move to the Community Minute. That'll be announced by our city clerk, Ann Nixon.
Absolutely. So, Bob Seymour Junior Memorial Kids Fishing Derby is Saturday, June 22nd from 8 to 10, Shelter 1 at Ari Olds Park. It's a free event open to kids ages 5 to 16. Parents must be available, and with their children, bring your own pole and bait. If you have questions, you can call 813-749-1152. Also, June 25th, this Tuesday, you can come back here between 11 and 2 for the Flood Map Open House. This is Oldsmar Council Chamber. It's free for all residents and businesses of Pinellas County. Learn about the impact of your flood map changes. And also, if you stay tuned for this meeting, there will be a presentation about some of the stuff coming up. And Senator Marco Rubio has a mobile office, Friday, June 28th from 9 to noon. That's at the Upper Tampa Bay Chamber of Commerce, which is also in this building, just underneath us. Meet your local staff and learn about the services Senator Rubio offices offers. What can Rubio do for you? You can find out. That's all I have.
That's all you got?
Well, there's more. Grab a paper. Myoldsmar.com.
I'm following your list up here. You just went through it pretty quick. All right, next thing on the agenda, next item on the agenda, approval of additional new agenda items. You know what?
We don't have any.
We don't have any.
Number
is
seven?
marked new agenda.
Number 7.
7?
Oh. And I was
Sad
bragging
one.
on everybody the other day.
Second one.
All right, I missed it, I guess. Al missed it too, because we had this conversation. Anyhow, the chair will entertain a motion to accept item number 7.
So moved.
Have a
Second?
second? Any discussion? Seeing none? Since when you're all ready to vote, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right. I guess we're going to talk about item 7 then. All right, next item on the agenda is awards and recognition. The first item is presentation of employee service awards, and I call our city manager, Al Braithwaite. You can applaud if you'd like, just for Al. It was that silent, awkward moment that always gets you nervous, Al.
Piece of paper.
Good evening. Hi, we have 2 service awards to give out tonight. Unfortunately, our first recipient, Dallas Shibley, who works in the wastewater treatment plant, could not make it with us. So we want to congratulate him for 10 years. And I have the honor of a second one, and we talked this guy into showing up. This service award is for 40 years with the city. And it's Charlie Lee. Charlie, come on up.
Yeah.
Come on, Charlie.
I'll come to you.
Oh my gosh, look at that. Oh. Look at that uniform in the picture.
All right, congratulations. First of all, see this good-looking guy here? I don't know who it is.
That's awesome.
This was in Charlie's personnel file in 1979, and we were all shocked because it wasn't black and white.
A year before was.
A long time ago. Anyway, congratulations, Charlie. A check.
You?
Me personally, I did sign it. There's your, well, you can make up your own mind there. You're going to have to take a picture with it. Anyway, Charlie was hired on June 29th, 1979. I just graduated from college at that time, but I can't make fun of him too much. He and I are the same age. 40 years of service to the city. That means he's old, as I am. He's employee number 3, which is the lowest of the remaining active employees in our personnel tracking system. Fun facts. Charlie grew up in Oldsmar. His mom was a council member here, and he has performed most every kind of field job we have at one time or another. He's held several titles, but rest assured that he has performed most every job there is to do around here at one time or another. One of the reasons he remains so valuable. His current title is a senior engineering technician. Like I said, whatever you need. He has been the distribution and collection supervisor, which is formerly known as the water division supervisor, in the past, leading that division for over 25 of those 40 years. In my opinion, this guy is the most effective customer service representative we have ever had in this organization, and I mean that sincerely. That's probably the most serious thing we'll say after this. He can do everything and is always willing to do whatever you need him to. He would also be my first choice for who to call if I needed someone to be on my side in any situation, whether it's a debate, a fight, or a service call. He has your back. I did review his personnel file. Took me about 4 days. And I decided not to name the exact number of how many compliments he had in the file. It is safe to say it's well over 100. When he supervised the distribution and collection staff, he was considered their leader, and in many cases, more than that. I won't go into all the details of what that involved, except to say that I'll bet most of those guys still owe him money. One observation from looking through his personnel file, he's been here so long that most of the paper in his file is yellow and has faded print. Just saying. Just saying, brother. Come on. Stay with me. Stay with me.
We'll get to you at all.
I know. Well, I'll get it back, I know. Charlie is not a seeker of the spotlight. Some of you may remember that I mentioned this at his 35-year award ceremony, that most of you don't know him because much of what he was responsible for took place in the middle of the night. It's only been recently that you would actually see him on a regular basis during the daytime. For most of my 20 years here, I thought he was nocturnal. I'm keeping this short because they probably had to bribe him to get him to show up to this meeting. He has an impressive collection of motorcycles and race cars in his garage that I'm sure he'd rather be working on. Charlie, we want to thank you for all that you've done for this organization and community. Can't wait to see what the next 40 years brings. Congratulations.
Turned it off right as we hit it.
Thanks, everybody. I appreciate y'all coming out. A lot of nice faces, friends and family in the crowd. There's Dan and Nan and Sandy and Cindy and. Don't worry about it. Okay, stop me. And my good friend Ann is over here, and Felicia and Al. So. My family couldn't be here as I didn't want to tell them that I work for the city of Oldsmar. They all believe I'm in prison, so I'm going to just let them believe that. So they're happy. But I have a great family. I love working here. I love living in the city and hope to. How long are we going to just say?
No, it's up to them.
Oh, to them? Oh, why I'm talking to you. How long am I getting to stay?
As long as you want. Al's another question, though.
50 is a nice round number. I don't know. Can you make it?
I don't think I can, but
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Charlie.
Keep smiling.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Ask a quick question.
Sure, go ahead.
Is what's broadcasted what we see on our monitor, or do the people that see this tomorrow see Al giving the award and the employee speaking?
Whatever's on the monitor, I would assume, is what is broadcast,
at this
correct?
point in time, yeah.
Is that in the works to change?
I mean, Adam, you want to jump in there? I think the audio from presentation will be there, but right now I think it's showing that picture of that guy.
No, I'm just wondering what gets rebroadcasted, because I think it'd be nice for the employees.
You do, it is being recorded and going to be shown.
The people at home, the millions and millions of viewers at home will see Al presenting
Oh, good.
Charlie's wonderful face.
Okay, good. Make sure.
This can be the same and can be different.
Thank you.
Gotcha. Oh,
Cool.
that was a good question.
I've been wanting to ask, so.
Yeah, you could tell Charlie, you could tell Charlie who's been with us for 40 years. You could tell that. Because I said, you could tell you've been with us for 40 years. Because every time I see Charlie out doing something or something, he walks like this, you know, like, yeah, I don't care. You guys don't know what you're doing. I do. I'll wait till you're finished. That's awesome.
The part-time filled in. Then, like after 35 years, I realized he really wasn't looking for anybody to replace him.
Well, thank you for your service, sir.
Thank you, Charlie.
Thank you so much. All right, the next item on the agenda, this is a good one, presentation of Council Manager Award for June 2019, and that will be done by Councilmember Siraki.
Thank you, Mayor.
Let's give Dan a round of applause. I know it's not a game show, but I'm just having fun.
He's setting a precedent.
The mayor is in a good mood today. Well, welcome, everybody. I want to just give you a little background about the Council Manager Award. The award is for an individual in the community that has stepped up to the plate and has volunteered and has stepped up beyond expectations in my eyes. And this award means a lot to someone getting this award because it shows the community that this particular person cares about the city of Oldsmar. And I am honored to give this award for June to Marianne Cruz. That was very nice. I guess you do. Marianne wrote a little bio that I'd like to share with everyone because I think this is really important. So I'm going to start out by saying that Marianne Cruz was born at the end of World War II and raised on a 144-acre self-sustaining Iowa dairy farm, where her family grew and raised their own food. Her work ethics developed from her life on the farm, where she learned to work hard and play when there was time. After high school, she trained to be an IBM key punch data entry operator. Those skills proved to be very useful many years later in her role as the secretary of the Oldsmar Historical Society. She moved around a lot from Iowa to Wisconsin to the Florida Keys, and she was hooked on Florida. Although she moved back to Wisconsin to fulfill her dream of further education and train to be a physical therapist assistant, she didn't like the cold weather and moved to Brandon, Florida. She volunteered for the Florida International Museum in St. Petersburg and served as a docent for the grand exhibits. This experience opened her eyes to history and volunteering. After she met her husband, Sergio, who's right here, we're going to bring him up in a minute, he suggested they move to Oldsmar. He's a smart guy.
Thank you.
A growing community, and they bought a house in Harbor Palm subdivision. Marianne wanted to become a part of the community and offered her interest and skills to benefit the city, and she certainly did. Today, she is the board secretary of the Oldsmar Historical Society. She has improved many aspects at the museum, including updated all the various paperwork and documentation, monitorized the membership roster to be on a spreadsheet and easy access to volunteers, rewrote membership and thank you letters sent to members. She organized a member email list announcing programs and other events, initialized a business membership promotion to start this fall. A year ago, by her peers, she was elected president of the 100-year-old Women's Club of Oldsmar, where she is now serving her second term. Her goal was to keep the club functioning, expose the club to the city and residents, and build teamwork where each member has a unique contribution to the club. Marianne plans the agenda, keeps the meetings running smoothly, listens to members' ideas, and helps implement these ideas to work. She leads the Women's Club to plan, organize, and accomplish these concepts to raise funds and engage in projects to benefit the community in Oldsmar and Pinellas. She is very generous and used her own money to have aprons made with the 100-year logo for each member to wear at the super party. And if you want to know what the super party is, each member of the Women's Club made soup, and we all got to pay $5 and eat soup. Well, I can tell you I was full.
Yeah,
and they're
right.
going to do it again. It was such a success. The community came out. It was such a success. She often provides the members with extra surprises at meetings, such as certificates, information folders, decorations, and donates raffle items. Under Mary Ann's leadership, the Women's Club of Oldsmar has achieved the following this past 2018 and 2019 year. The Women's Club has provided teacher supplies to Oldsmar Elementary and donated Adopt A class program. Continues to make contributions to the Oldsmar Library and American Cancer Society Relay for Life. Donates $1,000 to the St. Petersburg College Scholarship Foundation with guidelines that monies benefit an Oldsmar woman. Made 100 dinner duds from donated men's shirts for the veterans of Bay Pines. And those were shirts where you cut the sleeves off, right? And they could wear...
Yeah, they didn't want to wear bibs, so they made the dinner duds so they looked elegant at dinner time instead of...
Wow, that's fantastic. Successful garage sale with proceeds for the scholarship fund. Gall Air Arts and Crafts, where members sewed, knitted, baked items for sale. Very successful show. Had 2 members update the bylaws. Profitable first annual super party. Donate to Oldsmar Cares food aid cartons, clothes, paper products, and whatever is needed. Organize a team who is designated and constructed a parade float for the Oldsmar Days and 1/3 prize. Fantastic. Coordinated a team to clean the interior of the clubhouse, landscape the exterior, and work with the city to maintain the 100-year-old clubhouse. Social events to support our members. I am glad Mary Ann moved to Oldsmar, and I am very honored to represent Mary Ann Cruz, the Council Member Award of Recognition, presented to Mary Ann Cruz, June 2019. Congratulations, Mary Ann. You deserve this. I want you to tell us something about you.
About me?
Whatever you want to say.
Well, I've pretty much summed it up, but when I look back, the farm life gave me my background to work hard. We never played much. It was always work. So now is my chance to play, and I had a chance to play when I retired, and I couldn't do it. So I needed something to do all the time, and when I discovered all the opportunities in Oldsmar, I just went into it. I just want to say thank you to the Women's Club. They're the best women in the world. If you hear about the super party, make sure you come, because they're the best cooks in the world. Go to the Gall Air Art and Craft Show for their bake sale, because we are the best bakers, and they are the best. And the museum, please, people, come and see the museum. We have wonderful things down there about the history of Oldsmar. Thanks to Chip, who puts up with my phone calls. We got a leak in the roof, and he comes and says, no, there's no leak. So thank you for putting up with us and helping us with the building. We love the building, and thank you. Thank you very much. This is an honor.
One last thing. What I love about Mary Ann and what really made me decide to give her this award was she shows up on time to every historical society meeting. She's always organized. Her notes from the minutes are just incredible. She stops at my office and she'll say, here's a deposit, Dan, go to the bank, because I'm the treasurer. And she just is always organized. And if I'm not there, we have this old 1950s milk box. She leaves me little notes in there, and she leaves me all the bank statements. And I just love working with Mary Ann, and congratulations, Mary Ann. Well deserved.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you.
Oh, Sergio, you were supposed to come up here real quick. You might have to take one more picture, Felicia. I'm sorry.
You camera?
I'm sorry, Sergio. One more picture. All right, thank you, guys.
Congratulations. That is well deserved. Mary Ann is one of those people that you see at every event. because she's working at every event. So we thank you for that.
She's incredible.
The next item on the agenda is the Community Redevelopment Agency. We have no items under that tonight, so we will proceed on to the next item, which is the consent docket, which will be announced by our city clerk.
Item number 3, approve minutes of May 21st, 2019 City Council meeting. Item number 4, approve minutes of May 29th, 2019 work session on architectural and design pattern book. Item number 5, approve minutes of June 4, 2019 City Council meeting. Item number 6, approve payment to legal counsel for May 2019 legal services. Item number 7, accept resignation of Freya Stefan as ex officio team member of the planning board.
All right, God, is there anybody who'd like to pull anything? All right, at this time, the chair will entertain a motion to accept the consent docket as presented. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
I would like to say one thing about item number 7. When I read Freya's letter, I had to break out dictionary.com first of all. I am proud to know that such a smart, brave woman is going to be protecting this country. I was almost brought to tears by her letter, so you raised her right, Ann.
Absolutely.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion passes. Next item on the agenda is the City of Oldsmar, and item number 8, approve reappointment of Pat Pelatel. What is wrong with me tonight? As board member of the planning board. Pat, is she here?
Yep,
Oh,
she's
there she is.
Everybody struggles with that name, but it's Pelletier.
Pelletier. You know, I read it earlier, and that's exactly how I pronounce it.
Oh, yeah. And then when you see it, you think, oh, I got it right.
How are you tonight?
I'm fine, thank you.
Tradition of bringing people up who are up for a reappointment. So we appreciate you coming. And how do you like serving on the board?
I do, very much. I've been 2 years. I think I was an alternate member for 2 years. 2 years or 3 years? Anyway, at least 2 years. And I finally feel like I might be able to contribute.
It takes time, right?
It's different here in the city of Oldsmar, but yeah, I enjoy it very much.
We appreciate you serving and also the job that you've been doing. Ever since you have moved up from an alternate to a full member, you have not missed a single meeting. Did you notice that?
What?
You have not missed a meeting since you've been a full member.
Oh, that's nice.
I actually check that when we're going to reappoint somebody, because if they're missing all the meetings, I'm
I
like,
travel a fair bit, and sometimes my travel gets in the way, but that's nice to know.
yeah, so we do appreciate it. Does anybody have any questions?
No, thank you for your help.
Thank you for your service.
All right. Well, I will entertain a motion to reappoint. I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Item number 9.
Thank you, Pat.
We have a presentation on the FEMA release of new preliminary flood maps for Pinellas County and the consultant's presentation. Mark Goslin?
That's correct.
All right, Mark, and he is the Director of Hydraulics and Coastal Modeling for Interna. Interra. Welcome, sir. Share with us some good news. I can hardly wait.
It's not all sunshine.
It's not all sunshine.
It's not all sunshine.
Well, thank you for the opportunity to talk to you all today about the upcoming changes to the flood insurance rate maps for Pinellas County. Does this?
It clicked.
Yeah, that
Yes,
should-
it'll click through your presentation.
It's not on.
You have to maybe,
The remote one.
Oh, I was asking if this monitor went on.
no,
it
it's,
does not.
we're not, you have to use the clicker. We
Okay.
haven't, it's not in the budget yet.
I hope my eyes work then. Okay, so.
That will change as you click it.
Yes. I'm going to talk about the upcoming changes to the FEMA flood maps for Pinellas County. First, I'd like to talk about why the coastal flood risk study is being updated. First of all, our understanding of the risks to the coastal areas changes over time. The effective study was the effective study was performed back in the late 70s, early 80s. And it was based on some outdated hurricane modeling. And in addition to that, the topographic area has changed, both in terms of elevations and land uses as we develop the county. We are changing them so that we can more accurately define risk and account for the development that's occurred throughout the county. By gaining a complete and current picture of the flood risks, this helps communities plan for risk, communicate the risks to your citizens, take action to reduce flood risk, to protect lives and property, and also allows us to build smarter and safer. That was not it. There we go. So the current surge analysis is on the order of 30 to 40 years old. It was originally done in 1979 and only included hurricane climatological data up through 1977. Obviously, there's been 40 years of history since then. So we have a much longer climatological database from which to draw from so that we can get a more accurate picture of the frequency of occurrence of these events and as well as the properties of the hurricanes as they pass through our area. So our risk is going to be better defined through updated elevation data based on survey data, LIDAR survey data, updated aerial imagery, the new climatological data based on recent storms. Our computing abilities, as I don't have to tell you, have increased tremendously since the 1970s. And I'll show you an example of that in a second. We have updated methodologies for predicting extent of flooding and wave climate associated with these events. And in addition to that, we also have improvement in GIS capabilities that allow us to map the risk better and more consistently. So just to familiarize you all with some of the terms associated, when we have a hurricane storm surge over open water, it comes up to the, you can see the red line is the 1% annual chance still water elevation. That's the surge elevation, the maximum surge elevation that can occur during an event that has a probability of occurrence of 1% in a given year. This is not the maximum event that could possibly occur. It's only the one that has a 1% chance in a given year. So as we found out during Michael, we can certainly have events stronger than that, that was a greater than 1% chance of occurrence. So what the maps are showing is this 1% chance of occurrence. So we have that still water elevation, and on top of that, we have waves, okay? These waves are above that still water elevation, and what the base flood elevation, or the BFE maps, is the crest of that wave, okay? So the maximum vertical extent that can be flooded. So from offshore, as the wave comes inshore, it breaks, and this defines the VE zone. The VE zone is named because it's velocity related. The waves themselves can cause damage. The waves are greater than 3 feet. That's the threshold for being a VE zone. As the waves break and move in, as they pass below the VE, then we come into an area which is a little bit lower in wave climate. Less than 3 foot waves defines AE zones. We have a new demarcation here called the LIMWA. The LIMWA is the limit of wave action. It is it defines a coastal AE zone, one where there can still be some wave energy between 3 and 1.5 feet in height. Below that, we have the remainder of the AE zone up until the X zone, where that defines the limit of flooding associated with a 1% chance of occurrence in a given year. So where are we in the process of updating maps? FEMA initiated this project, this process back in 2012. There's been various stages where they've coordinated with the county associated with different milestones within the project development. Currently, we're in the appeal and compliance period, which initiated May 2nd and will end July 31st. We were contracted by the county to review the study, and we will be submitting to FEMA comments on the study for incorporation. And then they will judge those, incorporate them if applicable. There will be resolution. And then sometime around the winter, spring, so approximately 9 months, the current maps or the proposed maps, the preliminary maps, will become effective. So what have we done as far as reviewing the study? We started with a preliminary map review to identify areas where the greatest changes occurred. We looked at all the parcels within the county and did a parcel by parcel comparison between the effective and the preliminary to define what changes will occur at the parcel level. So it's a very granular review. We did a county-wide peer review where we reviewed all the documents associated with the study. Did a map-by-map review where we examined each map in detail to look for inconsistencies in mapping, elevations, things that stood out. We reviewed all the inputs and outputs of all the modeling that was done, which was substantial, I'll tell you. From that countywide peer review, we did some follow-up, and that was a more detailed review, which we're currently in the throes of. We're comparing the digital elevation maps that were used by FEMA to the LiDAR data, recent LiDAR data that we have for the area. We're doing a transect review where we look at the overland wave modeling along several of the transects, as well as questions we had about model input choices and statistical analysis. Now, the parcel level review identified that the city of Oldsmar, approximately 80% of the properties within the city will see an increase in base flood elevation or an increase in flood zone designation. So that's a significant amount. There are various 80%. So there are reasons for that. The primary reason, of course, is that Oldsmar is relatively low throughout the city, and there's little changing that. From a modeling standpoint or from a characterization of risk standpoint, I did mention that the surge modeling had changed significantly in terms of computer resources. Just to give you an idea as to how they've changed, the picture on the right is the old FEMA modeling where the grid spacing or the resolution was on the order of 1,500 feet, so approximately a quarter of a mile. This is Gordon Pass. The one on the left, I don't know if you can see the small little dots there that represent the resolution of the current mapping that's being done or modeling that's being done. Here's a little bit better picture of the change in resolution of the mapping that we're doing here, or of the modeling that we're doing, or that FEMA is doing rather. So on the left this time is the old resolution, and on the right is the new resolution. So as you can see, the current modeling is doing a much better job of resolving the surge. You can barely resolve features of the coastal areas with the one on the left there. And now it's being resolved with quite a large number of elements. This is part of the reason why things are changing in this area significantly, is because we're getting a much better resolution of the upper part of the bay above Courtney Campbell Causeway that we didn't have with the original modeling. Just to give you an idea of what that looks like in this area, each of the dots, each of the vertices of these triangles represents an area where we're solving for the storm surge and wave climate. And you can see the Oldsmar area there, it's quite a bit more resolved than has been in the past. In addition to the storm surge modeling, which is what I showed you originally, the overland wave modeling is updated along certain transects. Now, back in 2000, they did an update to the coastal maps, if you remember. During that time, actually before then, in the 80s, waves were not solved on the interior. They were assumed based on surge depth, okay? In the 2000s, they did institute or establish several transects in Pinellas County. However, they were only on the ocean side. There were 97 transects that ran along the ocean side and went inland. And that was all the wave modeling that they did. There was no resolution along the interior of the bay. So you can see that the data that the current effective maps have been based on is 40-year-old assumptions with no wave modeling. So that's why things are changing significantly in this area. So what's actually occurring? Here I've created a plot. The hatched areas show increases in zone, and the colored areas show differences between the preliminary and effective base flood elevations, okay? So the deepest red are the greatest, where changes are on the order of 7 to 8 feet. This is primarily associated with the offshore regions, where these are differences in the fact that we're actually resolving wave heights now. That's why they're so great, and why it's solely confined to the areas simply right on the water itself. Once you move inland, in general, we're seeing increases on the order of 2 to 3 feet over the southern portion of the county. In the northern portions, you can see we have hatched areas, but not colored areas. The reason for that is originally these areas did not have base flood elevations associated with them. So if they're going from an X zone to an AE zone, the AE zone now has a number or an elevation associated with it, whereas before it didn't, so we couldn't do this comparison. Up in the northern reaches, we're looking at changes going from an X zone to a shaded X zone. What is a shaded X? Well, that's an area where flooding can occur associated with the 500-year event, but not necessarily the 100-year event. So there are a number of resources available to us. Pinellas County, if you go to pinellascounty.org/flooding, has several resources for citizens to look up their flood risk associated with the preliminary maps. If you push the button, I can't read that. FEMA firm update? Yes. You'll come to this page where we see a yellow box where you have a choice between a quick view and a detailed view. With the quick view, it'll bring you to a page where you can zoom in to your house, your properties, or type in your address and it'll take you there. And there's a slider bar on this where you can toggle in between the current effective maps and the preliminary maps. So you can see how your properties are going to change specifically in terms of flood zone designation and base flood elevation. If you go to the detailed view, you can click your property and get that. You can just read those values off rather than have to pour them on the maps. So in terms of our review, I indicated several levels of review. We've completed a good portion of them. What we found is, in general, the study has adhered to FEMA's guidelines for performance of coastal studies. We found no significant systemic omissions, errors, or engineering misjudgments. We did have several questions about several things, and we have followed up on them. For example, we identified an error in one of the variables used for run-up calculations. It's going to change the mapping over 4 transects within the county as a whole. As part of our detailed reviews, we've taken a close look at approximately a third of the transects, the wave modeling along the transects within the counties, identified issues, and by issues I mean either differences in elevation, differences in land use. When they initiated the study in 2012, significant development has happened. So in areas where we had vegetation before, now we have houses. That's going to change how the wave propagates over those areas. So we did a deeper dive into 12 transects, and only 2 of them are going to result in remapping. So what are the next steps? Between now and July 31st, and hopefully sooner than that, we put a sooner deadline. What's our sooner deadline? To collect the SOMA.
Next week.
Next week. So hopefully by next week, we'll have collected SOMAs from each of the municipalities, or at least comments on the SOMAs. The SOMAs is a summary of map actions. Essentially what FEMA does is they review all your letters of map change and see whether they're going to recertify them or not. That's what the SOMA summarizes. We're going to get that from the county and submit that to FEMA. Several of the ones associated with unincorporated Pinellas County were not present in the SOMA that was presented to the county. We'll finalize the detailed review and transmit our comments to FEMA. If we find it appropriate to appeal a study, we'll prepare that before the end of the month. There will be a public meeting here in this room, actually, on the 25th. And the county will release a press release as well as social media in advance of these meetings. So at this point, if you have any questions.
Anybody have a question? No. I do. Are there any, I'm just curious, are there any organized groups that you're aware of who are objecting to these new flood maps?
Okay, FEMA's mission is to update the flood maps. They update the riverine portions approximately every 10 years, and the coastal portions on the order of every 20 years, because it's a much larger job to do the coastal portions because they have to be done regionally rather than on a stream-by-stream basis. So they've been working around the country. I do know of several communities who have appealed their flood maps, but they've been for either technical reasons or faults in engineering judgment or things like that.
And you're our consultant that confirms that the information that's being used by FEMA we find to be accurate.
Our job is to make sure that the study has been performed to the standards that FEMA sets forth. They have standards for performing these studies, and we make sure that they are done correctly.
You know, the hardest part about this, at least in my mind, is that, you know, suddenly a new study's done, which completely is going to change the risk categories for all of us. So our insurance rates are going to change dramatically. It's definitely going to, I had a conversation with our property appraiser, Mike Twitty, about what the potential impact will be to our property values. And that for our city is, you know, could be material. But guess what? Unlike most insurance, an event normally has to occur for there to be a material impact and a change in your rates. And what's unusual about this to me is the only thing that has changed here in Oldsmar is someone's done a study. Because we haven't all flooded. I promise you, I would know if we did. I'm certain of it. What is it, the VE?
The VE zones?
I'm the VEEE zone, right there.
Okay.
So, I mean, I would know, and I'm telling you, there's been no event, and yet all of a sudden, everybody does a bunch of research and a study for years, and it's all changing. I don't mean to belittle the advancements in science and data, but the truth is, and I come out of the technology insurance side of things, there's been no events here that would warrant a change like we're going to see. And that's not your fault. I'm just saying it, to me, is you know,
Hard to follow.
it is what it is, I guess.
Yeah. Well, and also the base flood elevation changes for people who.
I understand that. No, I understand that we have data and other events that have occurred.
And the
But what I'm
residents-
talking about is here in Oldsmar specifically. So,
A year ago, the residents of the city of Mexico Beach might have said the same thing.
perhaps.
So-
But there's a whole lot of, I'm not going to argue with you. There's a whole lot of places. Well, I mean, that's like saying, yeah. I mean, events
absolutely.
happen, okay? But it's like planning for something that's never happened or happened so many years ago. In the meantime, it's an event that ultimately, I think there's a bigger picture involved with relief funds and what people pay and who's carrying the load. And if you do the analysis of who's carrying the load, the state of Florida is carrying a great deal of the load versus the payout. So, even on that end, when you look at it from a analytical standpoint of where those funds are spent versus where they're collected from, they're collected predominantly from here, but they're spent elsewhere. And so, once again, that goes back to my whole, history is typically what determines rates. But we appreciate you coming and updating us, and it sounds like you were very thorough in the fact that what's been established has been validated, and
Yeah.
and so I'm not going to suggest we file a lawsuit. I'm laughing inside, I promise. No.
I
have a question?
agree with you, Mayor, because I live on the water and I've never flooded, and I feel for all the people that live inland that have never flooded, and now all of a sudden they're going to have to pay the insurance that we pay, and based on these, and we are a donor state, and I really feel, I just want to urge as many citizens to come to the meeting as possible so that you're not caught without knowing that you have to get this flood insurance, and this is how much it's going to cost you. So come to the meeting. And when is the meeting again?
The 25th?
The 25th.
And also I would say this to our citizens. And I'm, not your legal advisor by no means, but if it were me, I would get flood insurance now. If you don't have it
Agreed.
because you haven't needed it for your homes, get it now, because there will be some benefit that the rates, when they change, will go up more moderately at a slower pace versus for those who come in brand new.
Which doesn't make any sense. This is like a windfall for insurance. It doesn't make sense. Why is it going to be so much more if you don't get it now? I don't get that. Do you understand that?
Well,
I'm a scientist.
No, you're a scientist, yeah, you're not
not
an
an
insurance
insurance
guy. We've digressed.
I mean, the concept essentially is just that, okay, people who've always had it, okay?
Yeah, we're used to it.
Well, the presumption is that those people who are going to get it, who haven't needed it, it's probably going to be at a lower rate than what we're accustomed to paying directly on the water. So in any event, sir, we do appreciate your time and thank you for being here.
Thank you.
All right. All right, next on the agenda, excuse me, is the city attorney.
Yes, I have two items tonight. Item number 10 is the second final reading of public hearing of ordinance 2019-01. I'll read that by title only. Ordinance 2019-01, an ordinance declaring the intention of the city of Oldsmar, Florida to annex certain real property located in section 22, township 28 south, range 16 east, further described as lot 13, block 9, map of section number 1, West Oldsmar, parcel number 22, 28, 16, 9, 6660, 009, 0130, into the corporate limits of the city of Oldsmar, and providing for the effective date of this ordinance. That was the second final reading of ordinance 2019-01 by title only.
This is a public hearing. Is there anyone from the public who wishes to speak? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. The chair will entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion?
Nope.
Seeing none, roll call, please.
Councilmember Norris?
Yes.
Councilmember Saraki?
Yes.
Vice Mayor McGee?
Yes.
Councilmember Gannon?
Yes.
Mayor Seidel?
Yes.
Ordinance 2019-01, annexing 3124 Phoenix Avenue into the corporate limits of the city of Oldsmar is adopted with 5 votes for and 0 against.
Item number 11 on your agenda is the second final reading and public hearing of ordinance 2019-02. I'll read that ordinance by title only. Ordinance 2019-02, an ordinance declaring the intention of the city of Oldsmar, Florida, to annex certain real property located in section 22, township 28 south, range 16 east, further described as lot 12, block 10, map of section number 1, West Oldsmar. Parcel number 22, 28, 16, 9, 6660, 010, 0120, into the corporate limits of the city of Oldsmar, and providing for the effective date of this ordinance. That was the second final reading of ordinance 2019-02 by title only.
Thank you. This is a public hearing. Does anyone from the public wish to speak? Seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing. Chair will entertain a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Nope.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Norris?
Yes.
Councilmember Saraki?
Yes.
Councilmember Gannon?
Yes.
Mayor Sedell?
Yes.
Ordinance 2019-02, annexing 3192 Phoenix Avenue into the corporate limits of the city of Oldsmar is adopted with 5 votes for and 0 against.
Thank you, that's all I have.
It's some short work tonight, huh?
Exceedingly fast.
That's it. I like that. Let's just see if that trend continues. Next on the agenda is the city manager, Mr. Al
Item
Braithwaite.
12 is adopt resolution 2019-09, revising the fiscal year 2018-19 annual budget. Attached is a copy of that resolution revising the annual budget for fiscal year 2018-19. The general fund and capital improvement fund require adjustment at this time. I'd like to read the resolution by title only. Resolution 2019-09, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Oldsmar, Florida, revising the budget for fiscal year beginning October 1, 2018, and ending September 30th, 2019, authorizing the city manager and the director of administrative services to revise the existing budget. Mayor, that completes the reading of resolution 2019-09 by title only.
Thank you, sir. Chair will entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion. Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, motion passes.
Thank you, Mayor. Item 13 is authorize the city manager to advertise 2019-013 invitation to bid for the municipal services building window replacement. Some of you may remember this replacement project was originally approved by council in fiscal year 17-18. However, during the process of work being scheduled, the vendor identified that they would no longer be able to complete the job. The vendor was issued a cancellation notice, the current purchase order, and it's requested that the project be re-advertised. The windows on the municipal services building are from the original construction in fiscal year 98-99. They are single pane, non-impact rated, and some of the window frames have rusted over time, causing leakage. The new window frames will be made from aluminum, and the glass will be double paned and hurricane rated. Funding for the window replacement project is included in the fiscal year 18-19 capital budget under Facilities Division in the general fund. Staff recommends approval.
Chair will entertain a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion. Can't use wood panels over those, huh?
Oh, we need windows.
Hurricane ready? No? All right. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion passes.
Thank you, Mayor. Item 14 is to approve a paddling tour and non-motorized rental license agreement with Empower Adventure Operations Tampa Bay LLC to operate a water sport paddling tours and rentals from RE Olds Park. The City of Oldsmar currently has a lease and management agreement with Empower Adventures Operations Tampa Bay LLC to offer zipline adventure tours at the Mobley Bayou Wilderness Preserve through December of 2025. As a leading provider of outdoor adventures in the Tampa Bay area and across the United States, Empower Adventures desires to expand its operations to meet the increasing demand for outdoor activities that take place on the water. This agreement will permit Empower Adventure Operations Tampa Bay LLC to establish paddling tour and non-motorized watercraft rentals at RE Olds Park. It will be established as a separate agreement from the existing lease and management agreement for zipline tours and will expire on May 31st, 2024, unless renewed by both parties. The city attorney has reviewed the agreement and negotiated its final terms on our behalf. And Joe DeRing is in the audience if the council has any questions.
All right. Hey, Joe. Paddling on up here, huh?
Hey, Mayor, for sure.
I thought we were going to take the paddle out, but no, that's all right. Council members, anybody has any questions, comments?
I just had one question.
Vice Mayor McGee.
Thank you, Mayor.
So I've had residents in the past that have always wanted to paddleboard there, wish there was sort of a paddle launch area there. So I think it's a great addition to the city. However, they've always mentioned that to get out to the water, it's kind of like walking through muck to get out there. I didn't notice anywhere in the agreement that you guys were potentially preparing any sort of like launch pad. It just looked like designated launch zone. Is that something that you're thinking of doing in the future, or that's planned and I didn't see it, or?
It's something we'll think about doing. Again, starting, less is more at this point. We'll see how it goes. We'll see what's required as the traffic comes in and as the tours launch from there. But it will absolutely be a consideration.
Okay.
Where are you going to have them come in right now?
Just to the south of the fishing pier.
Okay. Oh, yeah, okay.
There's currently a lot of people that use kayaks there now.
Yep.
They park their car in the parking lot and they take them right through there.
Yep.
I just wanted to say that I am glad to see that it's non-exclusive. I'm glad to see that you've got discounts going on for City of Oldsmar residents and for seniors. And I was wondering if you were going to have the military discount as well.
For sure.
Yeah, I figured you would.
Yep, of course.
Yeah.
He gets to go free.
And I just have a question. Why did you choose Ari Olds as opposed to Mobley Preserve? Because of the guided tour, the signs going through the wetlands out to the bay. That's beautiful. I'm just curious.
Yeah, no, Ari Olds made sense for us at this time. And so that's where we decided to start, and it may make sense in the future for Mobley.
Right, so if anybody doesn't know it, right there's signs that will lead you all the way to Tampa Bay.
Yeah.
And then all the way back so you don't get lost.
Yeah.
So.
I will say I have gotten lost kayaking back there, though.
Have you?
Through the mangroves, dodging spiders. So it's not as, I think, intuitive as some might think back there.
When I went through there, I lost my glasses. The current sucked me and I fell right off. And
Yes,
I
ma'am.
have one question, Mr. Mayor. Joe, how will people pay? Will they show up to Bicentennial, pay, and then travel to Ari Olds, or will you have like a square or something? How will, logistically, how will it work?
To start out, it's going to be reservations based.
Okay.
And so the tour that we're going to be offering will come with a lesson. You'll book your day and time via through a phone call to the office or online, as we currently do for the zip
Okay,
line.
so there's not like an anticipated office set up at Ari Olds or anything like that?
Just part of the agreement, a pop-up tent with a mobile square as needed, but majority of our appointments will be via reservation.
Okay.
So there's no plans for, let's just say, hours out there, per se?
No.
Like on a Saturday or something when there's a lot of foot traffic out there? You don't think it makes sense?
There is a plan to get there, but to start as quickly as possible, it'll be with a set schedule, set availability that you can check online or call in the office and meet us out there. As we get to know what the demand is for the product, it's very possible that we could set up on a Saturday and come one, come all type of thing.
And equipment-wise, what's going to be available? Kayaks and paddleboards?
Kayaks and paddleboards. We do have canoes available. There'll be mostly singles, some doubles available here and there as well.
No ski boats?
No ski boats.
Just checking.
I can say as a kayaker and my whole family kayaks, we always call ahead and make a reservation because sometimes they cut it off. If there's too many people on the river or on Weeki Wachee or whatever, they cut it off. So if you don't make a reservation, you don't go.
Got it.
Yeah.
All right, I have one other question. You may not be able to answer it, though. What do you guys anticipate your first year's revenue being?
Again, it's more of a cost of goods sold prediction at this point, and so we're going to be doing our best to manage the business and the expenses as we go. Not quite sure, Mayor, at this point.
Okay, fair enough. Well, our 10% is not looking good, but.
Well, with partnership with the city, I think Chip and I will build some
It's done
synergy.
well. It's done well.
marketing.
Listen, I'm excited about it. I think there'll be a lot of folks who will have an interest in it.
Yeah.
Did you have something new to add?
No, I'm good.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion to approve at this time.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion. Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion passes.
Thanks, Joe.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Look forward to it.
Item 15 is waive bid requirements and approve the purchase of playground equipment for Richard Rogers Park from Top Line Recreation per the pricing terms and conditions of Osceola County Schools Contract SDOC-16-B-087-LH on piggyback form 19-010, extended to April 18th, year 2020. Richard Rogers Park is located on the east side of the Fire Station 54, directly across from Hayes Park Village. The park includes a large picnic pavilion, an outdoor basketball court, and playground. The current playground pieces were installed in 2001 and are showing signs of wear and are due for replacement. The new playground will have a fire station theme and will be designed to continue to meet the physical abilities of children ages 5 through 12 years old. It will complement one remaining piece of equipment that was installed in 2018 and enhance the appearance of the park and provide countless hours of physical, social interaction for the children. Total cost of the playground is $52,280.92, and funding for the playground is available in the budget from the park's general ledger and general fund, and staff recommends approval.
Chair will entertain a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion passes.
Thank you, Mayor. Item 16 is waive bid requirements and approve the purchase of playground equipment for the Oldsmar Sports Complex from Top Line Recreation Incorporated. Also, per the pricing terms and conditions of that same Osceola County Schools contract, SDOC-16-B-087-LH on piggyback form 19-010, extended to April 18th, year 2020. Oldsmar Sports Complex hosts countless activities on the football and soccer fields that bring families and friends together to participate in various sporting activities. While the youth participating in the sports are engaged in their activities, the other children who are there waiting must find something to do to keep busy. To help keep the non-sports playing children active and engaged, a small playground was installed near the park shelter on the west side of the complex. This playground was designed to accommodate youth ages 2 to 5 years old and will remain in place. Again, the new playground addition will also be located on the west side of the fields near the park shelter and will be designed to meet the physical abilities of the aforementioned children. The pieces will complement the existing equipment and provide additional opportunities for the older children to have fun, challenge themselves physically, and develop social interaction skills with the others. Total cost of this playground is $53,133.98, and funding for the playground is available in the 18-19 fiscal year budget from the cost center at Oldsmar Sports Complex in the general fund. Staff recommends approval.
Chair will entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. That's all you got?
Yes, sir.
I did want to make a point before we move on for some of the people who listen to these proceedings at home. When we waive a bid requirement, it does not mean that there's not someone or another contract. When we say we're piggybacking on a contract, for clarity, it means someone else went through the bid process and that we like what their bid, what they ended up with. And so going through a bid process is an expensive part of our operations when we need to do it, because there's a very formal process that it takes place. It requires a lot of resources. And so the ability to piggyback where somebody else has gone through it, clearly what we look at is we look at those other contracts out there and say we have no reason to believe that we would do any better in going through a bid process ourselves. As a matter of fact, a lot of times, because of the size of our city, we see opportunities where we do much better by piggybacking. So I just want to make a point of mentioning that, because we steamroll through those, and I don't know that people fully appreciate that, but I wanted to point it out. The next item on the agenda is city clerk.
Yes, item number 17, scheduled work session for the fiscal year 2019-2020 operational budget. The days and times for consideration are August 5th, 7th, or 8th at 4 o'clock, or August 9th at 9 o'clock.
Does anyone have a preference? Did
The
you
only
do
thing
any?
I couldn't do is the 7th.
The only one I can't do is the 9th.
Preference for the 9th, but I just heard Linda say she can't.
The only one I can't.
I can make them all.
Ooh.
What about you?
Preference is the 8th.
My preference is the 8th.
Does the 8th work for you, Katie?
I can do the 7th or the 8th, yes.
8th? How about the 8th? That sounds good.
Okay.
All right.
And then item number 18, discuss Leisure Services Advisory Board, resolutions, bylaws, and structure. In 2010, the Leisure Services Advisory Board grew exponentially when the Cultural Affairs Advisory Board was dissolved and the Parks and Rec Advisory Board was renamed Leisure Services Advisory Board. Resolution 2010-13 added 4 board member positions for former members of the Cultural Affairs Advisory Board. The board membership changed from 9 to 13. The cultures of the two boards have clashed continually since the merger. City Council has adopted several resolutions in an attempt to help the Leisure Service Advisory Board function effectively. Most recently was Resolution 2018-05, which reduced the board from 11 members to 2 alternates to 9 members, and reduced meeting frequency from monthly to 4 times per year. The board meetings are focused primarily on personality issues, updates from staff, and a punch list from board members. Resolution 2018-05 establishes the attendance requirement for board members, and it mandates for the board to organize itself as it deems proper, including the enactment of bylaws. The board adopted them at their February 11th, 2019 meeting. The bylaws essentially provide clear details on how to conduct meetings to provide consistency and avoid conflict which had been experienced. June 4th, 2019, City Council discussed several aspects of the board, including appointment procedures, attendance requirements, and review of the bylaws. The board interviews applicants and makes a recommendation to City Council. The same process is in place for the Planning Board and the Veterans Advisory Board. Attendance requirements represents the same percentage standard as it has been in place since the Parks and Rec Board was created. The bylaws support Resolution 2018-05 and provide clarification on the processes. The board does not run efficiently because of personality conflicts, the delay in reporting operations-related concerns, and the rarity of items for advisement. The city clerk recommends City Council authorize the city attorney to prepare an ordinance reestablishing the Leisure Services Advisory Board to include the following changes. Reduce the membership to 7 members. The reduction in personality should reduce the conflict to help the board become more productive. State board members are to quickly report items of concern to the Director of Leisure Services and not to delay reporting until the next board meeting. Delayed reporting undermines the value of the information. This is especially true for safety-related items. It's important to note that all of the board members, including the 3 recent vacancies, are excited and want to take action and make a difference in the community. Each board member has provided valuable perspective and suggestions.
Thank you. Well, there's a recommendation. I don't know if we want to have a motion to approve the recommendation or whether we want to have some discussion first, because that may not be the direction we go in altogether. So with the indulgence of the council, I'd like to just discuss it in general.
Move for discussion purposes.
Okay. Second. All right, so we have a motion and a second to accept the recommendations, and so now we're into discussion. All right? So we've got a couple people on here who have served on that board before. I'm going to just give some general comments. You know, the people who serve on that board, like with all of our boards, they're serving because they're concerned about the community. They want to be involved. You know, that is a staple of having served on a couple of different boards here in the city myself. That's the staple of the people that we have that live here. Having said that, and I'm just going to be brutally honest, it seems to me that for quite some time, there has always been some kind of personality issue, at least that's what it seems like, with that board. And I don't know if anyone disagrees with that, but I don't see that with our other boards. And I think they're, current folks who are on the board, truthfully, no different than years back before those people who are on the board in leadership roles today. There seemed to be conflict years back. My point is, there seems to be like this systemic history of this. And I don't know whether it's because it's the topic, maybe it makes it more passionate about it, maybe that's the reason why. So it tends to get a little bit more personal, but it is our responsibility as a council to ensure that everybody who serves on any board feels like they're being respected, that their leadership is operating in a professional manner, that there should be no board that we accept as a council that has those kinds of problems. That's on us. It's not on their bylaws. It is on us to be held accountable for that. And I feel very strongly, if this was a business, I would completely close that division down and start over. I know it's not a business, but I'm just being candid and very honest. In my opinion, tweaking it, I guess the discussion should be, does tweaking it, do we think that that's going to change it as a council? And I respect the clerk's recommendations. Or is it time to have the city attorney create a resolution to dissolve it? I know that might sound drastic, but I'm just being brutally honest. So I'm open for those discussions. We have one former member who offered up their opinion to that effect, who sent out the email.
Oh.
And so in any event, I open the floor for discussion. That pretty much opens the door pretty wide. So what I wouldn't mind doing is I wouldn't mind starting with those who served on the board before, and I'll start with Councilmember Saraki.
Thank you, Mayor. Right after the election with Gabby, I became chairman of the board. And at that time, we had, I believe it was 11 members, because the boards had just merged. The Arts Club, the board merged, and it was kind of a disarray. But I was able to bring the board into, working. And one thing I wanted to bring up was Kim was on that board, and she was on that board for several years before I got on that board as chair. And as a nurse, she always did come in late, but we always excused her because she always came to the meetings. And Lynn Reeves at that time was trying to get everything organized. And that board, when I was the chairman, actually, I thought was very, very powerful. I thought we made a lot of decisions as far as some of the trails, when the trails were being built. We talked about that. Sports complex, we had a lot of meetings that went on with that. And at that time, I thought it went great. Now, one thing I wanted to mention was that you said, Mayor, was there was some conflicts. There were some people that were negative in those meetings that were not helping us move forward. And I think that has changed now. But what I wanted to say is, at 11 members, it was way too large. And the recommendation that Ann has made, I actually feel that is a good idea. I was even going to say 5. 5 members would be enough. But Ann mentioned 7. In a nutshell, I won the election, so I had to leave right away. And then I don't know what happened after that. After that, we had Gator. When I left, Ken was on the board, Gator was on the board, and Gina had just come in. It was actually a very productive board when I left. So things have changed. But to close my statement, Ann, I kind of agree making it down to 7 or even 5.
Okay, well, there's a motion for 7 right now, so we'll leave it at that unless you want to make an amendment.
Nope.
So I was interviewed and appointed to the board in 2017, I think it was. I, like many of the people on that board currently, just had a desire to be of service to the community, and I found most of the members to be like-minded and brought, important ideas, brought interesting perspective to the meetings, because it's a nice cross-section, people from all different areas of the city. I can't recall if in that time the meetings were monthly. I can't recall if it was the first meeting I was at or the second meeting I was at where some of the conduct got out of hand, and immediately we lost a member over that because it was kind of offensive what occurred. I hung in there. I thought, okay, well, maybe I can hold the balance and be a voice of reason. I actually was the one who drafted the bylaws following another event that took place that resulted in a lot of, tears, quite frankly, but inappropriate comments, directly, members calling other members out in front of everyone. And it was Gator who, following that meeting, said, I hope that this never happens again, and we need to have something in place to have a mechanism to remove from the board a member who is causing these disruptions or, personally taking people to task for, being late or what have you. Something else that was brought up, the bylaws thing, I composed it and then it became such an ordeal to get it through the process, to get everybody to approve and vote on it, that in the end, it was a watered down version of the initial draft, such that there was no longer in the bylaws a mechanism for removal. This is a hard thing for me because I care very deeply about a lot of those folks on that board, the people who are no longer on that board. But I also did see a lot of wisdom in John Andrews' comments at our last meeting about term limits. Most of the people on that board have been there for a good number of years, which brings with it incredible experience and sometimes, valid and important ideas as well. But I think changing over some of those personalities and giving those people an opportunity to step down for a little bit and perhaps reapply could help. I do, however, have to admit that the mayor's characterization of the sort of, and Anne's characterization of the punch list, the sort of a session for folks to complain about issues, it bothered me the way that it functioned because I'm sort of a fundamentalist in that the way the board is supposed to function is that, we advise council. The board exists for the pleasure of the council to, provide advice, provide feedback. And instead of that, it was more of an individual kind of complaining session and a punch list for Chip at the time or Felicia at the time to do something about certain things that were usually motivated by that individual who was announcing it. And I had a problem with that because in my view, it should be any sort of complaint like that should really go to our city manager, who then decides whether or not Chip or Felicia or anybody in leisure services does something about it. So that sort of hierarchy bothered me. The reason the board was created bothered me. And as soon as the bylaws were approved, I was elected to council.
You did such a good job on the bylaws. They said, let's help her get off this board.
I will say, and I'm trying to speak from the heart because I can't be wrong about that. I will say that my experience on that board was productive. We did get into some interesting issues, but also somewhat disappointing in that I felt like I wasn't getting anywhere, doing anything. I wasn't doing enough for my community. And instead, I felt like I was just trying to protect the kind people who were on the board for the right reasons sometimes.
Got it.
So I like the suggestion of reducing the number of personalities. At the same time, I feel terrible because I don't want to take away the opportunity for certain, really involved and brilliant citizens to provide us feedback. So I thought, well, perhaps we could create something like a citizens advisory board, and rotate that, put a 1 or a 2 year term limit on it so that, folks could meet, provide input, maybe make it a prerequisite to be on it. You have to go through Citizens Academy so that we have people who are really speaking from a place of knowledge and understanding when they make a recommendation for, a change or what have you, and not limited to leisure services, because Lord knows there's plenty of areas in which people provide us feedback. And I am concerned whether or not the resolution, as stated, will resolve the personality issues. I think it will help. Will it resolve it? I'm not sure. I think it might be a good idea to include a term limit provision.
Okay, well, the motion before right now is to authorize the city attorney to prepare a resolution to reestablish the Leisure Services Board to reduce the number of board members to 7. So if that's something you make later in the way of an amendment, then you'll find out how your fellow council members feel about it when you do. And the other thing I will comment on, which maybe, and I didn't read the bylaws completely, but since you were a part of writing them, did the bylaws actually say that at one point that the board had the authority to remove someone, or was it that they make a recommendation
No,
to council to
we would
remove?
collectively make a recommendation to
Fair
city
enough.
council that
Okay.
somebody should be removed for a variety of reasons. Among
Councilmember
which
Norris?
was tardiness.
I hadn't served. I had only gone to one a long time ago. But I can say that I've been on dysfunctional boards that once the people that were the disruptors left, the boards really stepped up. So I think Katie's right. I think there needs to be some kind of mechanism of removal. I don't know how it works, because I would hate to dissolve the board. I mean, because I know Becky's been on it. I mean, people have done really good stuff.
Sure.
But if you've got some people in there disrupting, and I mean, some of that stuff that you described, I had no idea. Now, I do believe that your idea of taping the meetings, I think that's they're gonna be on tape. It's gonna be shown. They're gonna have to be accountable for their behavior and what they say to other people. So I think, is it possible to give them a probation period to where we can see if they shape up before we dissolve it? Because I would just hate to dissolve this board.
Yeah.
I appreciated Becky's comments and Ken's comments in the email. I can't find them for the life of me right now, but I did read them. And I think that Dan is right. I think that reducing the number to 7, I do think that is 7 or 9. I don't know. You had 11 when you were on.
Yeah, it was busy, very busy.
Right. So I think that reducing it, having it online, having people be accountable for their behavior, having a removal, something to where maybe the other board members can vote, or take it to Al, like you said, take the issues to Al so that Al can make a decision or whatever. But I think that dissolving the board, I think that would be unfortunate, but I haven't served on it, so I don't have as much knowledge as Katie and Dan do.
And I do agree with you that and this is something that I've always felt strongly about, and I'll come back to what I said at the very beginning. We are responsible to make sure that the people who serve on those boards feel, they're being treated with respect, and there's only one way to mitigate that, and quite frankly, it's to be aggressive to ensure that, everyone's accountable.
Right, and there's rules
And I
in
do
the bylaw.
believe,
There's
yeah.
rules.
I do believe that putting it online, look, if it's online and somebody comes and says, man, you won't believe what happened at this meeting, I guarantee you all of us will be YouTube watching the meeting like, oh, really? Come on, man. You can't do that. All right, anyhow, Vice Mayor.
I think I agree with what everyone said tonight. I would certainly agree with the term limits. I mean, we have term limits for a reason as well. New ideas, new people, and if people aren't so good or stuck on old ideas, it gives opportunity for new ones to move the city forward. So I think there should definitely be term limits on the boards, whether that's 3 or 4 years. I was looking at the city of Clearwater, just since that was where Felicia came from, and saw they have a 4-year term limit. That may be too long, but something to potentially talk about. After the people attended that were automatically forfeited after the 2 absences, 2 may be harsh, that if, let's say they have 4 meetings, they attended 50% of the meetings and they had something come up on those 2 days. I mean, clearly there were people that really wanted to be on that board. And it's sad to think that either they didn't realize it, or even though it was potentially an excused absence or a work absence, that they automatically have to forfeit. I potentially might be for saying, 3, if you miss more than 50% of the meetings, like, you automatically forfeit, giving people a little bit of a chance, because again, they're volunteering to participate. If something comes up with life or family or work, should we really be penalizing them, that extreme? I don't know. And then I also agree that there needs to be a removal process. I think what I read in there just kind of says that they can come to the council if there's an issue. Some people may be a little bit hesitant or afraid to do that, sort of like whistleblowing, especially with something that's happened with another board recently with a board member. There should also certainly be something that if a board member has a felony or has an injunction against them, in the city, that they should not be allowed to serve on a board that advises the city. So just some other things I think that might potentially need to be added to what we're discussing tonight.
Okay. Well, unless anybody else has something else to add, there is a motion and a second on the floor. Does anybody have anything else to add?
I would just like to say one thing. I
right
think that Ann's idea of making it to 7 is good. Let's see what happens with that board, because right now it's in disarray, and we don't want to cause too much grief for the other current members. I think we should just agree with 7 members, is my opinion, and then let's let that board heal. Let's give them some time to move forward. And then we can make other decisions if we have to in the future.
Very good.
Thank you,
Anybody,
Mayor.
on it now.
does anybody have anything new to add that we've not already
How
discussed?
many are on it now?
7.
7, so we wouldn't have to kick anybody off.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
All right. All right, we have a motion and a second. Sensing you're ready to vote, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
No.
Aye. Aye.
Aye. All opposed, nay? I believe the motion carried. All right, next item on the agenda. City Council.
Yes.
Item number 9, discuss horseback riding in Oldsmar. Who added that? That would be your mayor. So I'm going to open the conversation on it. And let me just say that this is discussion, right? This is the 1,000-foot view looking down and saying, hey, you know, let's talk about this, because some time has passed since we allowed it. You know, there was a time when we did allow horseback riding here in Oldsmar. It wasn't uncommon when you come down Lafayette and you'd see some horses coming down, and, you know, it was one of the things that when I moved here that I loved about it. It just, I think it adds to the charm. You know, and I think horsepower for kids events aside, I'm talking more in general, that, you know, there were some complaints of, you know, horse manure and that kind of thing. I mean, I think that was the only real complaint. I'm not aware of there ever having been an actual safety accident occur. Maybe people saying that it could occur or it might occur, but it's like we're going to have flooding now because somebody did a report, for God's sake. Pisses me off.
At least we know where you stand.
That was unprofessional, and I'll find myself. But, you know, there are ways to mitigate that now. I mean, all joking aside, I mean, they have things like horse diapers and manure bags that you see at a lot of events where there's horses that, you know, make a difference. I mean, it makes a difference. And, you know, if we ever got in that direction, you know, there's ways to mitigate some of those problems where you know, you could be brutal about it and say, well, this council feels like if you don't adhere to that rule and you're caught out, it's a $250 fine. The first time, second time, $500. I don't know. I'm just saying, just shutting it down, I think to me, doesn't make sense without us having some discussion about it. And so that's why I bring up the subject to see how does everyone feel about it. I mean, is this something that we should invest some time in and ask staff? I mean, there are a lot of different questions that you go through to get answered. Where do they ride? Where is it permitted? Where is it not? You know, the whole horse trail issue comes back up. Frankly, personally, I feel like it should. You know, time's passed. You know, maybe there's some things that we could do. So anyhow, let me just stir the pot, throw it out there, and I'm going to go over to this side and start with Councilmember Norris.
I had horses growing up. I love horses. I know that horses need to get out, and they, you know, they love it when, you know, contrary to what some people think. I agree. I don't know what all of the rules are, but I know that there were a lot of rules put into place when Armando wanted to do it in the preserve. But I think that it's a whole lot better for a kid to be riding a horse than being in front of a screen all day long. So and I also can tell you personal experience, the therapeutic benefits of riding a horse and having a horse and taking care of a horse, and especially with the autistic kids and developmentally challenged kids. It's so
I'm a yes, I agree.
All right. Councilmember Saraki.
Mayor, I have a question, I don't know if anyone can answer it. How many horses farms do we have in Oldsmar currently? Do we know?
I don't think we have a head count on it. What I would say to you is that we have a fair strip of properties that are zoned to have horses. And I think over the years, when we changed the rules that you can own a horse there, but you can't ride them off your property, which is kind of what we did, I think it changed.
Okay.
Right? But it's a fair question.
Well, then the next question I have is, the horses, where are we thinking of them being able to ride? Where are they gonna go? Because most of the properties that have horses are on Hillsborough County side.
No, there's, that have horses now?
Yes.
Okay, there's a lot of properties on the other side of, by Old Racetrack that are zoned for horses. So you can have a horse, but like the mayor said, you can't ride it off your
And
property.
they used to. A lot of people had
Yeah.
horses over there.
Yeah.
Well, they used to ride, I remember when I first moved here, they used to ride in the down south area by the water. Now there's a big housing development there and they lost all their land.
Yeah.
So where are we thinking as a council? Where are we thinking these horses are gonna go?
Well, I don't think that's, I don't think that's really something we tackle tonight. I mean, it's a fair question to ask. Is your contention is that you wouldn't want it unless you knew precisely where it was going? Or, mine is more of a global question of, do you like the idea of having horseback riding here in Oldsmar? Or does it concern you because we don't have enough open spaces? I don't know the way to phrase it. I will say this, which should not be lost on people, because we've had discussion in the past about whether it's permitted or not to have trails through the preserve, right? So I'm going to make an assumption, knowing former city manager Bruce Haddock, he would not have offered up an agreement to do such, even though the agreement was never fully executed, unless there was some ability to do so. So I've got to believe that there are a lot of options available, that being one of them. There is a problem, in case you're not aware of it. There was a time that they rode through there, and the horses went into the bay, and there were some issues there out of concerns. I will tell you that there is such a thing now that I don't know if it existed then, and that is what's known in Pinellas County as the Aquatic Preserve. And I only know about this because of the research I've done. And I had a little help with Commissioner Eggerts because the county right now has an issue that they are addressing where over on Pinellas County, over by the Skyway, where they have vendors who have horses out there who are riding on the bayside.
Okay.
And so they're addressing this issue right now. So I happen to communicate with the individual from the county who is spearheading this. And she sent me some information. It was, premature a little bit. I was just kind of getting a lay of the land. But there is a path to being allowed to do it, even within the preserve, right? Having said that, they're attempting to work through that process with those vendors. So, what it says to me is, it's not one of these scenarios in which the county looked at it and said, there's no way this is gonna happen, right? They're trying to work through it. Now, they may end up not being able to work through it because it's relevant to what is growing at where you're doing it. If there's a lot of seagrass there, it's a different issue. If there's a lot of mud there, not any seagrass, it's a different issue, so on and so on and so forth. So anyhow, my reason for going to that whole is that there actually are options, it sounds like, that might exist.
Okay, well, I'd like to say one thing. When I was younger, up in New York, Buffalo, New York, there was a farm that was right, you could walk to it, and they had horses, and we would be on those horses all the time. And what Linda said is true. It's very relaxing. It was actually a lot of fun to ride the horses. I didn't have a problem with it as a young boy. I really enjoyed that. And actually then the Boy Scouts, as being a Boy Scout, we would all go on the horses. And we had it was fun. And then the farm got sold and it was a big shopping center. And it was sad.
It was a coin pony thing you were riding.
Sort of like what
Classic horse.
they had. They had the property down there, they're riding their horses, and then the housing development came in and it's gone. Other than that, I'm open to suggestions. I just don't know where they're gonna ride in Oldsmar. And then the only thing I would like to suggest, Mayor, is if there are no horses in Oldsmar and it's all in Hillsborough County, since they're not in our tax base, I would maybe say if it does happen that they can ride in Oldsmar, that maybe they have a fee or a membership fee, or like you said, some kind of a plan or something like that.
I don't think that's unreasonable at all, Councilmember. Councilmember Gannon.
Been a bit long-winded this evening. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Oh, I thought you were talking about me.
No, I have been a bit long-winded. I'll try to keep my comments short. I don't have so much of a problem with the horses in general, maybe even on streets. I also grew up taking vacations to Wyoming, Colorado, staying on a ranch and riding a horse for a week. It's a lot of fun. I have personal friends of mine whose child with hip dysplasia, I believe it is, benefiting from therapy horses, as Councilmember Norris mentioned. I do have a little bit of a problem with horses on our existing trails. Whether real or imagined, I envision the potential. I am a lawyer. I envision a potential, because you're mixing sometimes in narrow areas, horses, bicyclists, children, dogs. I think a lot of our parks right now even have signs that dogs aren't allowed, in certain areas because of they're an animal. It's an unpredictable kind of scenario. On top of that, though, I sometimes feel like we're doing our very best to consistently maintain our existing trails for human use. And so I worry about the degradation to the trails as a result of these animals, which are beautiful and wonderful and obviously beneficial, but also very heavy. And repeatedly traversing the same areas. So for me, I would love in Oldsmar something that's dedicated to horses. Not a trail that horses are allowed on or a street that horses are allowed on, but a trail for horses. Because I think it has to be relatively lengthy. I read in some of the materials that most horses walk about 4 miles an hour. So you need about 6 miles of trail for a ride that's kind of worth doing, which is what we've done as a family when I was a kid. You go for a ride, bring a lunch, there's a picnic, it's beautiful. I thought about the Twin Lakes area that I think Gabby mentioned once before. I know that's not logistically in the budget at the moment, but I'm not opposed to a dedicated horse trail.
Okay, good enough. Can I just comment one thing on that in the 6 mile thing in the report? And I was on council back when that. Just based on my own experience, I rode a lot as a kid. That seems exceptionally long as a requirement. It just does, So, in any event, I don't know.
Dedicated trail of any length.
Yeah, absolutely. Vice Mayor, can't wait to hear what you have to say.
I've always been in support of the horseback riding in the city. I think when it came up years past, when we decided to not allow it in the preserve just because of degradation of the preserve, we suggested that the city staff look into other areas within the city where it's allowed. I don't think that went anywhere. So I'm absolutely for it. I think it's a great form of sports tourism and those things that we've really prided ourselves on. So I would be in support of allowing it. I agree with Katie that it's probably best in sort of a designated horse area. It doesn't necessarily have to be a trail, but if it's a part of the preserve, I think it needs to be a designated area to sort of prevent those kind of liability issues that might arise when you're mixing. But yeah, I'm absolutely for it. So.
Okay. All right, well then listen, if it's, there doesn't seem to be any opposition, I'm looking to have consensus. You hear me say that a lot, right? I'm gonna attempt to work on something if it's a pleasure of the council. to see if there is something that can be done that answers or poses some different questions to bring back to this council to take a little bit more action on. I didn't want to make it a workshop thing because I don't think we're there at this point. It may prove that the challenge is too great. I don't know, but I'm certainly think that we owe it to the community to give it a good shot. Because I will tell you, even though certainly the current horse ownership, for lack of a better word, is across the street in Hillsborough, I would not underestimate the number of citizens who live in Oldsmar, who are taxpayers, who have expressed their desire to have horseback riding here. For most of our citizens, they don't distinguish the difference between the city limit line and what I like to call East Oldsmar. I call it East Oldsmar. The reality of it is, so we have 14,600 citizens who live here in the city, right? It would be virtually impossible for our businesses and our events to be a success without the surrounding areas being patrons. And so I think there's something to that. I agree with the council member. I'm all about we're spending taxpayer dollars, let's spend them wisely and to our benefit, but I think it's to our benefit. So anyhow, all right. So if everyone's okay with that, that's what I'm gonna go work on, bring back, and just wanted to make sure we're all good. All right, item number 20, discuss circus ordinance. I believe it was Vice Mayor who added that, so I will turn the floor to her.
Sure. So as we all know, when the flea market announced that they were going to host an animal circus, the mayor received many emails, probably, I don't know if it was mainly local residents, but probably a lot of animal rights activists and things that sent emails to the mayor expressing concern and no support for, an animal circus within the city of Oldsmar. And after receiving all those emails, I thought it was best to bring up this discussion before our council. My suggestion would be in hopes that we would create a city ordinance. There's a difference between horseback riding, which I think teaches kids compassion and respect for animals, therapeutic reasons, versus putting animals in a circus for exploitation and for purposes of profit. Granted, kids love animal circuses. I went to them. I rode camels as a kid in a circus. I've done animal encounters. Who hasn't? But I think that there is, times are changing. I think that we as human beings have learned, that animals have just as many rights as we do, that we can't force them into, captivity, that we can't force them to live with us in ways that we want, especially for profit or for entertainment or amusement of our kids or ourselves. So essentially what I was proposing was a city ordinance strictly to prevent any type of animal circus, parade, or exploitation. It doesn't prevent display and use of animals for educational purpose, for nonprofit groups, conservation, and rescue, because I know we also have some of that here in the city of Oldsmar. I do have an example of a potential ordinance. I'm happy to read a few lines if you'd like me to, Mayor. But it simply just says prohibiting the exploitation of animals for entertainment by circuses, and it talks a little bit more about, mistreatment of animals in circuses and those types of things. We, outside of just the animal rights element to the circus, we as a council, I think, have agreed that we are trying to build a brand here in the city. We are trying to create world-class sports tourism, ecotourism. We've got the zip line, we're having paddleboarding, kayaking, we have an Olympic BMX track, we have upgraded soccer fields, we're building a Tampa Bay Lightning street-made hockey rink. And I think that having an animal circus at the flea market degrades the brand of what we're trying to sort of build in the future as a world-class city. Cirque du Soleil, that's a world-class circus. So if the flea market wants to have Cirque du Soleil, I would proudly support that with human beings that have agreed to do those kinds of things. I also say keep in mind that the now owner of the flea market built Disney Springs. I mean, if you think about potential for what's possible there, I think just thinking an animal circus, I know is sort of them getting their feet wet and maybe bringing in a little profit, that is so far removed from what's potentially possible here in the city on that land. And then lastly, what I would say is that something recently, I think in the last 5 days that happened, you may have heard about this in the news, was that a city in Germany actually reinvented the circus using technology with holograms. And they got the idea from Justin Timberlake at the Super Bowl, the halftime show, with Prince in a hologram form next to him. And they created these holographic animals that sort of awe the audience from a technology standpoint versus real animals. And so that tended to be a big hit. Not to say that we're going to have them here in the future, but you know, that's the future. That's the possibility. So long-winded answer, but I would hope that we would all support prohibiting, you know, animals for exploitation in a circus here in the city. And God forbid if one of those animals happened to get out. A couple years ago, we had a wolf escape, you know, at Horsepower. Imagine not only the safety of our constituents and visitors and patrons or children, but also the image, the brand that we put out as a city. You know, giraffe in circus at flea market gets loose in the city of Oldsmar. Headlines, I don't want to see that. So,
Sure.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Comments? Any comments? Councilmember Gannon.
You can tell by the look on my face. It was a look on my face, right?
It was a look on your
It was
face.
a little bit of a look. I think that was a very well-worded and well-researched presentation on an issue that I don't necessarily have strong leanings one way or the other, but can't really disagree with. I'd be interested in seeing the language of the ordinance.
Excellent. Councilmember Norris.
Okay. What about a petting zoo? Are you against that as well? Would that be addressed in the ordinance?
I mean, that's something that we could address in an ordinance. I mean, a petting zoo, a farm animal versus like wild animals like a camel and a giraffe is certainly different. But it's certainly something we could decide as a city. I will say, maybe 2 weekends ago, if I may, Mayor, I was on an Airbnb experience and I was hiking in the mountains with goats. It was a woman that has goats that, you know, she uses for milk and cream. And she brings them on this hike and she educates you about these old coal mines and gold mines. And these goats, they're not in cages. They're not there for me to pet and love on or feed. They're just walking with us like on their daily walk like they normally do. And they're extremely intelligent. And I would say, come on, girls, and they would run and catch up to us. And it was cute, but it gave me greater respect for a farm animal that maybe I would have thought was a goat in a petting zoo. So yeah, I wouldn't be opposed to also saying, you know, maybe we shouldn't allow petting zoos.
Should or should not?
Should not.
Okay, well, I have, this is, very few people outside my family know what I'm about to tell you guys. But I had the same thoughts about circuses and, you know, animals in captivity and everything else until I experienced it firsthand. And when I was in my 20s, I actually traveled with Ringling Brothers Barnum and Bailey Circus. And I never wanted to put that out there because I don't want to be dubbed the circus girl. But there were a lot of college-educated people
I
that were
promise you, I'm not going to make jokes about you when we're off camera.
Well, I have to tell
I mean, to you,
I
of
have
course.
to tell you, Mayor, I finally made the decision today that I have to be true to my integrity, and my integrity says that I can't lie about this. I have to be able to state what I have to say, and the only reason that it's going to have any credence is to let you guys know that, yes, I lived on the circus train. Yes, I lived with the animals, with the acts. We traveled all over the country, and I can tell you that those animals are, in my experience, and I'm not saying that there aren't abuses. I'm not saying that. But in my experience, what I saw for the year that I traveled with them, those animals were treated better than we were. They were fed better than we were. And we all lived together, and they're loved. And I'm not saying that the animal rights activists don't have good hearts and don't have things that they can look to, say that there's abuses that are occurring. But we don't know whether or not abuses are occurring with the animals that they bought from Ringling Brothers. We don't know. We would need to investigate that. I would personally go down and see how they live. So, I mean, and in light of this last election where I was dragged through the mud and there was lies told about me online and everything else, I figured, telling everybody I traveled with the circus.
I think it's, personally, I think it's kind of cool. If you want to know the
Yeah.
truth.
I think it's
I'm like,
great.
man.
It was one of the best years of my life.
So what were you, like a clown? What were you?
Thanks a lot. You were just waiting
I had
to
to
say
hear.
that.
It took everything I could not to do, and there, Dan, right on.
All right.
All
So
right,
basically,
back on track. Come on.
The nutshell story is I was vice president, part owner of my own mortgage company, and I hated it, and I wanted to go back to college, but I made too much money, so I had to be poor. So I went and did something where I didn't make a lot of money, and I joined the circus. Long story short, they wanted me to be a showgirl. I said sure, but in between being a showgirl and I couldn't start until Atlanta, and in between that, I sold cotton candy and snow cones. Yes, you can laugh. But by the time they wanted me to be the showgirl and they showed me how much money a showgirl made, I made more money in one day selling cotton candy and snow cones than than the showgirls did in a whole week. So I said thanks, but no thanks.
Back
So anyway,
to the animals.
Anyway, I wasn't a clown.
Yeah.
But they went to clown college, by the way, okay? So they're not just
All
clowns.
right, I'm going
They
to
actually went to
move
clown
us past the
college.
clowns and carnivals.
So anyway,
and get back to the matter at hand.
my point being is I never witnessed any abuse with the circus, and I lived it. I don't know how many people can say they lived it. I lived it. And I'm an animal lover. I love animals. I don't eat animals, so I practice my animal rights advocacy every day because I don't eat animals. Happy Cow is my favorite app on my phone. The cow is happy because you're not eating them. You don't eat cows. So, I mean, I practice what I preach when I say that I'm an animal lover. But to have an ordinance against it, I think that's, I disagree. I mean, I'm probably going to lose this one, but I disagree.
Fair enough. No, it's okay. Councilmember Sraki.
Thank you, Mayor. Gabby, I just want to say one thing. You did some great homework. You said some great points, but I just want to mention that, I think I mentioned it to you last meeting. I went to the circus when it was here in Oldsmar. And all I can tell you is those kids' faces with what was going on. And then I was able to feed the giraffe, and I saw no abuse of animals, and I'm an animal lover. I don't want to spend a lot of time here, but I don't have a problem with a petting zoo at Oldsmar Days, and I don't have a problem with having a zoo at the flea market. I am not going to tell Grady, as an investor who just bought all this land, that he can't do what he wants to do with his flea market. That's my point. That's all I got to say, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember. All right, so here's what I will wrap up with. Certainly, and I appreciate the fact that you put it on there for a purpose of discussion. I think when we do that, it all kind of gives everybody an opportunity to think and talk and offer up ideas.